Are you ready? Amazon Warehouse Hiring Day is coming on October 26th. Amazon will host live hiring events in your city to showcase all the reasons why this Amazon warehouse is the place to work. Things like competitive pay, great benefits, and so much more. Drop in for some swag, bring a friend, and you could even walk away with a job. To find an Amazon Warehouse Hiring Day event close to you, visit amazon.com/hiring day. That's amazon.com/hiring day. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
With the Kroger Plus card, it's easy to get lower than low prices, which adds up to big savings for the win. You also earn fuel points on every purchase, which means you win big at the pump. The Kroger Plus card, all you do is win. Big, big savings. Sign up now at Kroger.com and start saving. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Fuel restrictions apply.
And now, shop what you love and save $2 on each participating item when you buy 3 or more with your card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It's podcast time, Brady style, And this time, we are going to be episodic recapping, and I'm going to try and have a good time, and we're going to try and make it interesting, and we're going to try again. I am alluding to the title of the episode we're going to break down, otherwise known as Jan Brady Thinks She's No Good and Has No Talent. I'm Barry Williams.
And I'm Christopher Knight.
And we are
the real Brady Bros. Yes, we will try again. And in this episode, we will try to get it right.
Yes, we're coming to you. This is going to be with the Bradys all grown up, or as grown up as we got in the first series, season 5.
Yep. This is Try Again, season 5. First aired November 16th, 1973. It was the 10th episode of season 5 and the 105th episode to air in total.
Get it out.
You will see on this episode, and I guess this is the case for all fifth-year episodes, that Sherwood Schwartz is credited as being the creator in the front end of the show and being the executive producer at the end, and Howard Leeds is credited before him with Lloyd Schwartz on a second card. So there must have been, I'm looking at that going, there must have been an interesting avenue there that, like, basically, if you're going to have to share the producing credit, we'll put your credit before mine kind of thing. I don't know, thinking. Mm-hmm. Written by Al Schwartz, the extended Schwartz line, and Larry Rhine.
And writer of several episodes.
I'll have to count them up someday. Directed by George Tyne. I wish I remembered George Tyne, but I'm not sure if he directed Barry. Do you recall him directing other episodes?
I actually do not, and we didn't. We had a limited input into this particular episode. Also, some fun things, keeping with the theory of the family working together.
We have on the end of this episode, vehicles are credited by both Chrysler and Chevrolet. So on the lot at the time were Chryslers and Chevys.
And a couple of guest stars: Judy Landon, who played Jan's ballet teacher; Ruth Anson, who played the drama teacher later and instrumental in changing Jan's life. You know, one of the things, Chris, about doing the show and having perspective and some distance on it and some objectivity is how these characters really had an arc. And so many times we've seen this over and over again with Cindy. She kind of is the rascal. She gets people into trouble. She either blabs or breaks a promise or tells somebody something that she wasn't supposed to or gets overheard. And that must have been was difficult for Susan Olsen. And I never really understood that until we've done so many of these things and kind of dissected them. And with Jan, we all know the, Marcia this, Marcia that, Marcia, which is that middle girl syndrome. And this episode personifies the lack, the way that she handled issues or not being able to be great at something right away, which it seemed that Marcia always was. So as we kind of go through these disappointments, it's interesting that, like, she tries something, for 2 minutes. And then if she wasn't like a professional at it, she quits.
Right. And we'll go through that because that's going to hit the heart.
And hates herself.
What I think is the moral of the story. Right. Just there's a little bit of self-loathing in here. This is an outgrowth of the cliche idea of this Jan character. And it begs the question because I'm on record saying that a lot of what they ultimately were writing to by the fifth season, certainly third, fourth, and fifth season, were attributes of ourselves. So it begs the question then, what were they picking up from Eve that they were inserting in the character? Because this predates that. This whole idea of identity crisis was front and center, was her foundation, if you will, and they never really got away from it, annoyingly so, in my opinion. And here, this is an epitome of that, with a very good lesson that they were trying to teach in this episode.
Right.
I'm not sure it was structured as well as it could have been. I had to watch it a second time to actually get kind of that message, because I was maybe a little bit more just annoyed in how Jan was reacting to this crisis, because it was bigger inside of her than it appeared to me to be on the outside.
Absolutely. And that was my point. And the other thing is, and we'll get into each one of them, but the things that she was taking on are the kinds of things that require years of practice and of discipline and trial and error and disappointment and all kinds of things in order to become really proficient and become really, really skilled, such as the first one, which was ballet. We pick up the show, she's in a ballet class. Well, ballet is a wonderful form of discipline and exercise and grace and
poise,
and beauty and lines.
And learning, self-awareness physically.
Yes. Yeah. Almost like martial arts might be in a very different way. So what struck me, and I had to watch this 3 times.
Okay.
Because, just the opening scene, because everybody's in their tutus and tights and ballet slippers at this class. And it's clear that Jan is doing her best to fit in, but it's also clear that she is not very skilled and probably hasn't been at it very, very long. And then at the end, when the teacher says, for those of you who are going to be in the recital, you can go find your name on the board. And whoa, was Cindy in this? Was she in the ballet class? So I had to go back and look and find her.
Not only that,
and I did.
I recognized her the first time I watched it, but then I'm thinking, if the two of them are in this class, then Marsh is probably in it. How come I haven't seen her? And I had to watch it really closely because I was looking for blonde hair. But and the group shots, when they're all dancing, her hair doesn't appear light enough to be blonde. It looks more brunette from afar. And it took me actually walking up to the television, because the camera more or less follows the Jan character and lets the Marcia and Cindy characters sort of go in and out of frame.
They're really not seen very much at all. You've really got to be looking for them.
And then once you notice that they're all 3 in the class, it raises the question, what are they all doing in the same class? So now, Kara's family comes from dance. That's what her nieces do. Kara didn't. She got into gymnastics at 7. So that was her thing. But her nieces, her sisters, they did dance. And in dance, like dance class, the recital is done by everybody. It's a dance class. And the recital is the end of the dance class, or one of the rewards of the dance class. You all paid the ticket to not be in the recital.
Which is interesting. And this is where our writers took this, is that in watching and rewatching that scene of the dancing, it's obvious that, as I say, that Jan is under-skilled. But she's certainly as good as Cindy and Marcia.
Well, that's what I'm going to say. Now they put them in with some girls from a dance class that had some advanced ballet skills, or more advanced than our 3 girls do, and it's clear that our 3 girls are not at the level that the other girls are at. And then Eve was probably directed to even be less than that.
Yeah, well, but we're following Jan. Well, she might have been directed that way, but I'm telling you that to keep up even with that small routine that they had, you would have had to have a couple years of ballet, to really look proficient and land properly, and stances and your extensions and your jumps and all of that stuff. Cindy and Marcia weren't hitting them either.
We haven't seen them in ballet class previously, but you would have to assume that they have been taking ballet for quite some time.
Sure. Yes, you would.
It's so easy for her just to quit.
No doubt. I mean, the teacher comes over and really, pulls her down and says, Jan, you don't even need to bother going over to see if you're in the recital. This is really not for you.
So on so many levels. First, like when you pay for the dance class, you do the recital too. You don't get, it's not like competition for the recital. It's not a dance troupe where you're trying out like you would be for a play to make the dance troupe. It's not that. And then to know that you got two sisters who are going to make the recital, right, and then you're not. I mean, I turned to Kara, my wife, and asked her, I said, you're around this world. Would that bring up a issue for the teacher if all of a sudden she has to vote off the island one of three sisters? And might she just look the other way and say, okay, you're in two? Because it creates such a, a family issue. But anyway, we're setting up the episode.
Jan knows how to handle it. As soon as the teacher mentions that, and the teacher also mentions, but there'll be other recitals, and Jan immediately, no, there won't. I quit. Bump, 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 bump.
Yep.
And that's it. That's it on that. So she's going to go find something else, I guess.
One other note I just wanted to bring up. So at the very beginning of the show, we come from the titles. The first shot is of a building. Do you recognize a building that they're dancing in? It's the exterior of that building. So that's the Metro Media Studios building right up on, it was on Van Ness and Sunset.
Okay.
So that Metro Media Square is where Norman Lear did all of his shows.
Oh, right. So All in the Family.
Where, All in the Family, the Jeffersons,
Sanford
you name it.
Jeffersons.
It was all there, and they moved some of them off to Universal later, like Different Strokes and so forth. But yeah, that's where I did Joe's World, as a matter of fact. So yeah, recognized it immediately upon.
Now,
seeing.
did you take any ballet classes there too?
That's not my thing. My bag ain't dancing. No, I didn't take any ballet. Matter of fact, pretty much my life was consumed with our show. All the stuff I would have done would have taken place from about 10 on, and I was busy at that point, So, I wanted to do I wanted to play football. I wanted to play baseball. We were contractually obligated not to hurt ourselves. So I did get a motorcycle at one point. I wasn't supposed to. Okay, so the
big subplot
girls
in this one.
So we would have two, actually. But okay, you have one obvious subplot. Jan quits easily, but we also find out that something else in the fifth season here, 104 episodes have gone by at this point, and we've never known that Mike Brady has gourmet culinary skills.
Oh, boy, does he ever. And he's ambitious. The way this is revealed is, and this is something you probably don't see a lot anymore either. Well, first, a man in the kitchen at this time was pretty progressive. Which was nice.
Was it? Because Graham Kerr was, this was, Julie Child, Graham Kerr, they were.
I'm not saying that there weren't other chefs, but like the dad in the kitchen, really,
absolutely.
Culinary skills and taste. Yeah, that, a little bit of a role thing that Alice and Carol had been kind of holding. But he is being asked to test the sauce for this spaghetti. And he dips the spoon into the pan and then slurps it off the spoon and then sticks the spoon back in for stirring, which is something you probably would see a lot today.
It's still boiling. It's okay. The family shares their germs together.
But he knows instantly what's the matter. How is it? Carol and Alice are all happy about this. And he says, nope, it's not. She says,
not quite right.
What's wrong? Yeah, what's wrong? Well, it's the oregano. Now, that's pretty good. You got to know your oregano, right?
Well, oregano is pungent. So, if you put too much oregano in, it would pretty much be an obvious thing. He knows what's wrong, too much oregano. And we're assuming that Alice and Carol are trying to figure out what's wrong because they're pondering something's wrong with this sauce. And then we find out when he says too much oregano that Carol says, no, it's impossible. I put exactly the amount of oregano the recipe called for. And then we find out Alice has done the same.
Right.
Leading to too many cooks spoil the broth. And maybe that's why, because they can, both add to the recipe, not knowing what the other has done. Anyway, so this gets us into this idea that he is this chef. Of course, this is news to Carol. You would have thought that she would have known this because she says something I don't think, well, I guess you could say it today, but it implies the attitude of the day about men in kitchens, as you were alluding to earlier, which is that something when he's saying he was pretty good as a bachelor in the kitchen. And she said until his can opener broke and he had to get married so he wouldn't starve.
Well, now that we've got this established with our subplot, we got to get back to Jan. So we're now out in the backyard and you and I are playing ping pong which is fun. Did you play much ping pong as a kid? Because I did.
I could tell that you played. I played some. Yeah, I would play more after this show was shot. I had some pretty decent ping pong skills at one point. I also rode a unicycle at one point, which is hard to believe because
so did I.
Can't do that anymore.
Don't want to.
Yeah.
So this was a very interesting thing that happens. We're playing ping pong. The ball gets by me. Bobby goes to grab it.
Well, wait. We're not going to go by that moment that quickly. This is one of those beats of direction. Clearly you're still trying to work out how you're going to work this through, almost like you do in rehearsal when you're mentally working on a number of different things. Because when that ball is tossed to you, it literally it just almost glances off you.
Yeah,
and you do nothing even to flinch.
Almost hits
to
my hand.
ignore it. Right. It's like, let's throw it again. It's just, it looks like, wait a second, we need a second take on that because you're literally going, okay, so that I'm going to let it go by me without really acting like it's coming towards you, because you saw it the whole way. Your eyes are following it. It just looked kind of odd.
And I always appreciate these moments when you point out, what I'm, not playing the reality of the moment. It makes me feel.
Well, it struck me as a rehearsal. This is what you do in rehearsal. And then they roll the camera in rehearsal. No, we're moving on. It's like, well, wait a second. You're making me look like a fool.
So the ball goes, well, I figure they're just going to cut away from that. Right. I don't know,
Yeah.
But anyway, the ball goes by me, glancing off of me, actually kind of was in my hand maybe for a second.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. Okay.
No, it just went by you, but your eyes moved by you. You didn't use your hands.
So it goes onto the ground and
into the driveway.
Jan is, coming in and she's not in a good mood, right? Because she just quit ballet. And so she comes in, she sees the ball, and what does she do?
She crushes it.
Steps on it with her foot.
It was such an un-Brady moment because literally, this is right after she's quit ballet, right? And she quit ballet in this kind of sort of dull, matter-of-fact kind of way. No, there won't be another recital.
No,
and it wasn't like she was angry. She was it was resigned and like she was prepared for this. But then to show up on the driveway in the next moment we see her crushing the ball, we get the idea, okay, she's pissed off at this.
Yeah, so I'm figuring we must have a lot of ping pong balls because we weren't even mad. It's like, whoa.
Well, I think you're taking them back.
That would have ended the game, that's for sure, if you didn't have another couple of ping pong balls.
You always have more than one ping pong ball.
I guess so.
Especially when you're playing outside and it's going to bounce into matches. So, previous to this, though, Mom and Dad had set up the subplot because there's going to be a challenge now, right, with Mike's cooking. He has established himself as a chef, and they dare him to prove it. He's going to make a souffle. So that's coming up. But, all right, so now we got Jan. Jan comes in, is not very responsive to Carol when she asked how ballet class was. She said, what, horrible or terrible or something, and then just walks on through. She is followed to the kitchen by Marcia and Cindy, who we did see in that first scene, were in class with her. And they go on to explain that Jan tries hard, right?
Jan tries. So now she already has an idea of what she could do. She could take tap dancing lessons and learn how to tap dance.
Well, that was an idea given to her by Carol because she'll take some heat from Mike about giving her that idea.
Because Dad was, encouraging, I think, to kind of stay. But Jan says, no, I'm about as graceful in ballet shoes as an elephant in ice skates.
On ice skates, yeah. This is when we find out that she has not just not done well in ballet class, but that she quit the class. Carol goes up and consoles her. This is when we find out how Jan feels about her ballet skills.
Right.
And that there was something else that she said. A stumblefoot. That's what it is. She calls herself a
stumblefoot.
The world's largest stumblefoot.
Is that like Dumbledore?
Yes. So it's become, before Dumbledore, there was Stumblefoot. And hang on with the plot for 1 second. This brings me to a point I was trying to make earlier about the things that the writers started to bring into our characters that came from us individually. Was there a bit of clumsiness in Eve that they were writing into the character at this point? Because this whole show is about
clumsy
her physicality. Her clumsiness is front and center in this episode. And that's not necessary to play that vicious one-note, woe's me, middle child. being clumsy is something else that occurs later in this character.
But this is what I think about that. I don't think anyone's going to accuse Jan Brady as being an athlete, but this is a period of life when she's growing up. Her legs are long. She's kind of coltish. She's got long legs, and I think there might have been a bit of coordination. That she was coming into her own as she was maturing into a young lady. So
there's really not, So they're reading into her an awkwardness from visualize because of the growth spurt that she went through, perhaps. Maybe that's where this comes from. Because I have no idea why they're hitting this note so hard in this show. Can't recall if
it's to make the point. It's to make the point. I mean, now we were only getting started here. We've gone from ballet. Now we're just getting started into tap dancing, which she does to show Mike Brady, to show Dad, like what she can do. But she just decides to do a turn, which if you've ever tried getting any kind of tap and you're tapping and trying to do a turn, again, you want to have, maybe a couple of years behind you. And she knocks into the souffle that he was making to prove to Carol and Alice that he really was a gourmet cook. So that's an important subplot point, because this is going to kick Mike into high gear and, make claims that he's going to make a gourmet dinner for everyone. And this takes up a darn good part of the plot through this particular episode.
I will have to comment that the writers and our producers knew very little about cooking. So they're out of their element talking about this, because they have Mike having spent 3 days preparing for his souffle. You know what a souffle is? Crying out loud. It's like he's got a 3-cheese souffle he's making. Yeah. It's an omelet. It's a fancy omelet, that you're hoping is going to rise when baked. So the preparation is not in the shopping. What it took 3 days to do, I have no idea. Nonetheless, that sets it up that this was a lot of work to get it to this point. And boy, these are moments that are a little tense when you're shooting a scene that has something that's going to get you all dirty. Maybe not as dirty as it did. They weren't probably anticipating that much. Where you anticipate you're probably not going to get a second take at something.
No.
And it's just, you just have a chance to get it right.
Yeah, that'd be an hour. You'd have to have double wardrobe. You'd probably do makeup again.
Right. So you're coming up on this moment where you're going to get one chance at it. And boy, did it work. If you watch it slow motion or watch it stop action, that thing hits the ground flat so that the bottom hits, and that just catapults the souffle or whatever was in there, because it had apparently spinach in it, so it could read better, something green, but it just spatters everywhere, and it kind of covers Mike, the kitchen, a little bit on Jan. It worked beautifully, but that's also why you kind of see the character, Jan, maybe exposed, because she has to make these moments broad to ensure that she knocks the souffle off the counter. But the actual end of that scene works really well.
But this does not slow her down. So she heads upstairs, I guess leaving it to clean up, everyone else to clean up. And she goes up to start practicing in the upstairs bathroom, and so she's pounding away on the linoleum in there. Now, this takes you and I up to my attic bedroom with the guitar again.
Right. And you know something, I'm realizing now, watching these episodes, that there were a lot of the guitar element was very
was pretty constant,
repeated. Yeah,
and that was going to your other point of our own interest and what we bring into it. Since they all knew that I was playing guitar, that becomes a nice way to establish a scene, or why we might be together or working on something, or something musical, a good prop. So and again, here I was playing it for real, and you can tell, because that was like right from the lesson that I'd had the day before or something like that.
Was it?
But that's going on so that we can now establish that Jen's getting irritating. The tapping thing is not working, and it's a kind of annoying, and she's doing it on every hard surface in the house. In the meantime, Mike is getting challenged, because even though he claims to have made the souffle never came to fruition. So he vows to make a gourmet dinner by himself. And when he's asked what's in it, he says he doesn't divulge anything, because he's not only going to make it himself, he's going to shop it out himself as well.
I liked why Carol needed to know what was in it. What her explanation for why And that was it. Because when we go to the hospital after eating it, we need to tell them what we ate. But there was, let's go back to that moment where the souffle drops and now Mike is very irritated at his daughter for knocking this 3 days worth of work off the counter. There's a level of when he offers up, couldn't you have, like, he gets Carol to confirm that she was the one who gave Jan the idea for tap, and he says something about couldn't you have led her to soft shoe. But there's a beginning of an attitude that maybe I'm reading into the show, but it starts kind of there and it follows through now these scenes you're talking about, that the level of irritation indicated to me that her clumsiness, her whatever, is something that is continually annoying to us. That's what I got from that scene and that look from Mike. It's like, hey, don't bring her down a path where the clumsiness is going to affect us all. And then, of course, her loudness, and she's doing it in the bathroom. Of course, real life, she would have done it in the driveway or the garage to learn her routine, but she has to do it in the bathroom, some place that is in high demand. And we're hearing that, right? We're in the attic. Greg's living in the attic at this point
right above him
when you're playing the guitar, and I got the recorder duty on you. So that tap is loudly heard upstairs. Anyways, we're all tired of it.
Right. And I don't know that it was Jan that was getting to be irritating as much as what she was doing. Kind of like when Bobby was learning how to play the drums and, he was in the den and just making all that noise, or like anybody who's learning the trumpet or trombone or even keyboards, a lot of times it's just plunk, plunk, plunk. So I think that's what it was, the activity, not really the person.
Well,
and
you're
I
right.
thought Mike was upset about his souffle, not about who did it or how it happened.
Well, he didn't play the forgiveness angle on the end of that scene when it clearly accidentally knocks this souffle on the ground. It was a complete accident.
Well,
but he's playing it as though these accidents happen too frequently. It's sort of the way I read it.
So, it's not just you and I that are getting upset. Marcia and Cindy, they've kind of had it. So everybody goes down. Yeah, all four of us go down there. Was Bobby in this too? The four of us did, you and me, and then Marcia and Cindy.
No, I don't know if Cindy and Bobby have a scene where they're irritated from the tap dance, at least.
Okay.
If there was a scene,
we go to complain to mom and dad. And so,
this is the next morning. We're all walking down, picking up our lunch to go to school.
So we complain. And what does Jan do? She decides to quit. She's done. She's not going to work through it. She's not going to continue to practice. She's finished. So Marcia comes up. This gets to kind of what the Brady thing is about. Now we're all going to try and do things to help one way or the other. Even though it becomes devious at points, Marcia, it has come up to make her a drum majorette.
Right. This is because Carol is starting to give the advice of the show, in part, that leads Marcia to recognize, I got an idea, because Carol implores us all, when we all get our lunch to go to school, we all say how annoying the tapping is gotten for all of us. And Marcia at the end adds that she has no talent for tap. And Jan walks in on that and hears that. And she agrees. And she does it in that same flat manner that she quit ballet. Yeah, I agree. I have no talent for anything.
For anything. Ever.
And Marcia, of course, feels bad. And then Carol insists that Jan needs to keep looking until she finds something that she really does well. And that gives Marcia the idea. But this brings me to a point of something that had not and does not get broached in our show and should. That the idea we all struggle with, as we're growing up, our talents, our natural talents, those things that are a struggle for us and what things to put weight behind. And those decisions are made from enjoyment. And that was never really focused on. Well, what do you really enjoy? It's never brought up. Find something you really enjoy, and you'll probably end up being very good at it.
Which makes this even more sort of ironic in that Marcia's suggesting that Jan learn how to do something that Marcia's already like a professional at, which is
a bad idea, especially when you're Jan.
Twirling. Yeah. And Jan, who's always in constant competition with Marcia, is now going to try and learn something that Marcia, with all her innocence, is saying, it's really easy, she says. There's nothing to it. You wear this stupid hat, which was ridiculous.
Why was the hat on? Is that because they weren't sure they would know what she was doing if they didn't wear the hat?
If they just gave her the baton. So
Yeah.
Marcia, quickly explains how to do that. I think she even demonstrates it and then hands it to Eve. Now, Eve is supposed to be what? An expert, because Marcia has, shown her how to do it, and all you do is just wiggle your wrist.
Yeah, baton twirling is not something you recommend for your clumsy sister. Frankly, I was really surprised how well Maureen did it, but okay.
She takes Jan through baton twirling lessons 1 through 24 in about 35 seconds. And yes, faster, 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 faster. Now throw it. Jan throws the baton about the same way that you threw the football into Marcia's nose, like over the roof.
Right.
So high that she breaks the upstairs window.
She is immediately crestfallen and mad. She says she's a no talent. She'll never be good at anything. And that brings us to our act break.
Are you ready? Amazon Warehouse Hiring Day is coming on October 26th. Amazon will host live hiring events in your city to showcase all the reasons why this Amazon warehouse is the place to work. Things like competitive pay, great benefits, and so much more. Drop in for some swag, bring a friend, and you could even walk away with a job. To find an Amazon Warehouse Hiring Day event close to you, visit amazon.com/hiring day. That's amazon.com/hiring day. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Well, you made a good example earlier in this podcast where you're talking about riding a unicycle. I had one day to learn how to ride a unicycle for an audition. And so I went out and bought a unicycle and started. Now, I don't know about you, but you don't just get on that thing and start riding around.
No, and it's not a one afternoon. I mean, it took me maybe 4 months.
And you're going to fall. So how about if you get on the unicycle, you fall off and go, I'll never be good at anything, ever.
Any case, Carol and Mike went to the recital. They come back with Marcia and Cindy because they were in the recital. You're watching over Alice's shoulder as she's cheating at solitaire when Mike and Carol, Marcia and Cindy walk in.
And that's when Alice tells them why Jen not only didn't go, but she's upstairs there. Well, sulking. Marcia says,
and they don't use the word sulk, but what are the words that would have been used back in the day for a
Marcia
child like this?
She says Jan thinks she's the most miserable human being in the human race.
She must be the most, but yeah, but clear. But there's something that Mike does here that's just terrible. So when he finds out that she's locked in the room, he just basically, Mike says she's a big girl. And she has to learn to face this kind of problem.
Yeah,
that's all he has to say about her situation. Today, you'd recognize you might have a depressive child.
Well, he's worried
be
about
careful
his
here.
Gourmet dinner here. So,
he's sidetracked. Carol also says that Marcia and Cindy were the best at the recital. Now we all saw all the girls.
That was a parent's wishful thinking.
Well, at least Marcia gets it because she utters, "Mom and Dad, don't be so unbiased."
So, Greg, now to the rescue. I've got a plan. We probably all consulted about these things since we have now established that we are professional level ping pong players, especially in my own mind. I'm going to invite Jan to play ping pong with me and lose. I'm going to let her win, but not let on that I'm letting her win. Just in the scene before
we're all given the idea that she has to feel that she's good at something.
Right.
And this then keys this idea that you have.
I do. And everybody else is going to come up with their own ideas. So off to the ping pong table and oops. Oh, gosh, I missed that. Oh, Jan, you sure hit that hard. Oh, Jan, did you put curve on that ball? Oh, Jan, I can't, right away.
This was a hard to watch scene, especially looking at what she's wearing. Because ping pong is one of those games where you really need to you have to have a good center, right? You got to, shoes are going to be important. And she's wearing almost,
platforms,
what do you call those? Platform, big, thick heels in in a dress. Whatever challenge there was going to be in directing this scene to make it look like Greg is honestly losing to Jan only makes it look even less believable.
That made her even better because she could do all that in a dress and platform shoes.
Right.
Anyway,
okay, well,
we're not kidding anybody here. I let her, and I've made it very clear to you guys that I'm going to do something I've never done before, and that's lose a ping pong game. Whatever.
I do like the end, though, when you do lose to her, you make sure she promises you that
Yeah.
She doesn't tell Peter.
Yeah, because I got to protect my reputation.
Really cements it as true. So,
Marcia and Cindy have an idea too, something everyone can do at the same time. They pull out the Monopoly board game. And when we pick up their game with just like, I think, a roll of the dice away from the end, and Marcia and Cindy are broke and have no money, and Eve, owns all of Boardwalk Place and every train station. It has all the hotels,
and you can engineer this in Monopoly. I mean, if you don't play, you don't buy the properties, then clearly you're letting someone win. But Jan wants to play again, and Marcia says, "No, you're just too good." Yeah. And that's when the platitudes start about her being Howard Hughes. Incredible at finance, and
Peter and Bobby come up with a way to make Jan feel good too.
How do you let someone win at darts? I mean, clearly when you come into the scene, you see a dartboard with then darts stuck in the fence, like a foot away from the dartboard. So somebody,
and then there were some others on the board, but we only see one dart actually being thrown, and that's by Jan. And where does it land?
I didn't even notice. You're right. I should have looked at that more closely.
It's like practically a bullseye. Now,
well, who knows?
How do you engineer that?
And at this point in my life, I didn't know how darts were scored. So I in the moment didn't know that this was sort of silly and stupid. But nonetheless, letting someone win at darts, it's just they have to be able to win at darts. You can throw the darts all you'd like at the fence, but they're going to have to hit the board at some point.
Yeah, you can't just lose at darts. The winner actually has to perform.
I mean, it's like saying here, Jan, play ping pong without the pal. So anyway, but okay. So for the purposes of our plot, this is working. We're giving her confidence. We can see it in her face, and she's having some joy. But
this does get us back into the kitchen. Dad's coming back with all these bags of groceries, because he's been out buying all these ingredients for this gourmet dinner. So while that's going on, Cindy comes in and telling Mom and Dad that she don't know where the checkerboard is, so that she can throw a game of checkers.
Let Jan win at checkers, right? Pretending to lose.
And this again goes back to where we started about character arc and development. Here is Cindy blabbing away like she's never been overheard before. And Jan gets wind of that. We've all been setting her up to try and make her feel better, but not legitimately. It was all phony.
Cindy's a good device if you're a writer, because you can always trust that Cindy is going to make sure that the beans are spilled.
Right? The beans are spilled.
She's the bean spiller of our group. So she spilled the beans, and of course then we learn it's not honest to lose purposefully, and there is really no victory in a pretend win.
Right. And it's really cruel. I mean, even with my son, when playing sports and stuff like that, I didn't let him beat me. I didn't want to let him beat me. I knew he would at some point, and I would tell him that, like in wrestling. We'd back and forth, we'd kind of keep it even, but when it came to the end, I'd pin him. And then he would say, "Well, God, can I ever get you?" And I said, "Brandon, you will. And when you do, you will get me every single time after that."
Well, I go through this with our puppy. I don't want to equate puppies with people, but there's play. And then there's gameplay. There's with rules and stuff like that. And when wrestling is sort of right in there, in the middle of that, that's play, but it also could be a real sport. I know with our puppy, she loves to be pulling on a squirrel thing, a stuffed animal. Mm-hmm. But I can easily keep it away from her all day, which is hysterical, but it's cruel.
Yeah, I was going to say, not for the puppy.
Some point, you got to let them win. You got to let them have the thing that you're making more difficult by being involved. I mean, they can just grab it themselves, but once you got it, on a string, you're pulling it back and forth, and not to ever let them have it. I've learned from Cesar Millan, you've got to let them win at times. And maybe there's no similarity here with children, but
since you're using this as an example, I must say I have a toy Chihuahua, weighs 6 pounds. That's tiny. He thinks he's a Saint Bernard,
right?
And we do play. If it were up to him, it would be like 8 to 12 hours a day. With only sleeping and eating interfering. So that's very much, and I understand it, very much a part of that. First of all, people need to be very careful about the teeth right? If you're holding, a toy, and because they can chomp down on you, pull it too hard, you can pull their, loosen their teeth. But not only to be careful of that, and when they do win, they like to come back and re-challenge. He pulls back and does a little strut, does a turnaround, comes back, drops it. And that's my cue to throw it. But yeah, I'm just saying about trying, over and over again to lose to someone and to make them think that they're actually more skilled is more hurtful and more harmful than it is helpful.
Yes.
And I think that's a big part of the takeaway in this particular episode, however we get to it.
Well, I think that the way that it's uttered is elegant. I mean, it's not honest, and there is no victory when it's a pretend victory.
As is the case here, because Jan is still not finished spiraling. Now, this brought up kind of an interesting character development for my character, Greg, because generally we would have, Dad making an apology or creating an understanding or giving a lecture or something. But in this case, he kind of talks sense into us, and it's Greg who goes to Jan and apologizes on behalf of everyone for setting her up like that. Now, as I say, she's not done spiraling yet, because instead of even though it was well-intentioned and misguided, instead of seeing that they were trying to be nice and trying to be helpful, Jan instead, she decides, okay, that's it. I'm a born loser, and everybody now feels sorry for her. She's confident she's a no-talent loser.
Mike likes to use what the brothers and sisters have done for Jan, that it was proof of how much they care about Jan. And of course, she then turns around and says is proof of that they feel sorry for little Jan Brady, the loser.
The loser.
So of course, Jan is always going to snap back into this self-pity thing, but it brings out of Mike and Carol the moral of the story, and that is they implore Jan to keep trying and looking for something that she's good at, because she'll never find it if she quits.
This is why this episode, you have to try again. So they suggest, Dad says, look, there have to be plenty of things going on at school and activities and things like that. Why don't you try out for the play?
Apparently that strikes a chord with Jan, because next thing we know is that she has got to try out the next day for the lead in the school play. And she has one day to memorize all of her lines. We smell a disaster coming, possibly.
And you go, you attend this with her, right?
Apparently I'm the support element in this next adventure on stage. So yes, Peter is there as moral support, reminding her at the worst possible time, right before she's to go on, remember, self-confident. It's like, could you, I mean, obviously that harkens back to some other conversation they had. And Jan is an American in Paris painting, right? In a scene that she's not yet really mastered. And that becomes quite clear. Peter in the audience growing smaller and grabbing both shoulders and getting tighter, hugging himself.
There's an interesting and important plot point that when the scene begins, the acting teacher, the school teacher says, Jan, what is that you have on the canvas? And she says, oh, well, I started a painting last night because it would make me feel better to have something to improve during the scene rather than starting with a blank piece of canvas. We don't get to see it, but it is discussed. And then everything falls apart. She can't remember her lines. She answers the door before it's even knocked. Then she calls the character his real name instead of the character name. It just goes.
And then the other Jan arrives on scene, the clumsy one, really putting a catastrophic end to the scene in her theatrical career by throwing the paint.
And once again, Jan decides she's no good, and she decides to
quit
again. This is
one try at it.
One try done.
So what's interesting here is we have clearly some tapping into life events in Sherwood's life as well, with his kids no doubt being in drama at some point. Maybe we knew Hope would do that, but probably that's happening at this moment, right? She's probably 14 or 15, his daughter. And Lloyd, no doubt, probably had, some experience in school, in theater. Mm-hmm. So maybe some of these experiences that he had watching in the audience. But the one thing, the acting isn't really about remembering your lines. Of course, that's a necessary technique later. one of the indicators that maybe you got somebody here as an actress is that she thought about the painting. That to me would have been, oh, wait a second, maybe we need more time with you in drama, because you kind of get how you build a character, at least. It's not just learning your lines. But of course, that is given no credibility. And of course, being a klutz doesn't help. So yeah, she bombs out.
But Miss Ferguson discovers, as you say, that she's a talented painter. And finally, somebody is giving her some real encouragement. It's something that is a natural talent. And she seems to be okay with that and comes back and says she quit the acting. But Miss Ferguson wants her to join the art class.
After Peter had left, this teacher, the drama teacher, is also the art teacher and noticed in the painting some real skill. So there we have it, accidentally discovering a talent, which in this case, life will imitate art. I'm not sure if Eve at this point already explored her artistic depth or began to. I think she had. She coincidentally was an artist and is an artist.
She is, and just so our listeners know, she is a bona fide and successful painter. And I think she works in oils and something else. Another
acrylics.
Acrylics. I don't think it's. I'm not sure. And she has actually a line of cups and things that she's designed. But as a painter, painting on canvas, she's quite accomplished.
And that's interesting because I don't think they knew that.
Maybe this was an inspiration. Okay, so we've had this subplot
dangling here
for a long time. So
competition.
We're out of the show. We're coming back now for the epilogue. We have a lot of tying up to do. Mike is in there. He looks like full-on chef.
Let me
describe this dinner for you. That he
do it in French.
He comes back, of course. Okay, so Mike is saying, well, and he's showing each of these things as he's
because they're now declassified.
Vichyssoise, which is of course a potato and leek soup, Caesar salad, chocolat mousse, which he has in the refrigerator, tomatoes parmesan, asparagus hollandaise, boeuf bourguignon champignon, which I believe was instead of just a regular red wine with a boeuf bourguignon, which is a French stew, they put in sparkling red wine
and mushrooms.
That's a gourmet dinner. That is a gourmet dinner. I'm impressed.
It's a 4-course gourmet dinner.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
And so, surprise, what does Carol relay to Mike about when he's done with dinner? Get everybody down for dinner.
Yeah. Well, the kids can't be here. They're all out. Don't you remember? They've got something else that they're doing, a movie.
Well, no, it's not like, don't you remember? Not like no one ever told them.
Right. He ad-libs things that he would do to put in, sensibility to this. He says, this probably was a lie. He says, well, I can't believe that they're not here. All this time that I've spent. And then he kind of mumbles, and not to mention the cost of all these groceries. Because there's enough for 6 people or 7, 8.
9 people.
For
9 people.
Yeah, cook for 9 people. But the part about the money, that would be something that he would add, because those ingredients, there are lots of them, and they all need prep, and it all has to be timed out, as you know, because you are a gourmet cook. But this is what kills me. So he's really distraught and really upset about this. What are they going to do, and how is he going to save it? And then he asks Carol and Alice to go sit down, and he'll
at least they're there to eat.
He'll bring out the food. And he comes around the corner, which is like literally 8 feet.
4 feet away.
8 feet away, open, there's no door, there's nothing. And all 6 kids are sitting at the table, quietly, of course, but still. How through the whole scene, how could they all get into position like this?
Yeah.
They're all sitting there and, oh my gosh, now he's happy. And then he does the chauvinistic turnaround. He was going to serve everybody. Now he gets Carol and Alice to do it.
First, I'm thinking, how did he not know and how did Carol not share with him that the whole family is not going to be there and let him go through this whole charade? So I'm kind of annoyed, leaving the reality of the suspension of disbelief for a moment. And then they come in and see the kids. And all of a sudden, I'm so glad that was just a joke.
It's
going to be a happy ending.
I don't have a recollection of seeing Alice sit
the table.
At our dining room table and in her uniform.
Never. And I caught it from a different visual cue, and that was there was a kitchen dining chair that Bobby was sitting in at the end of the table with his back to the camera that supplied enough seats because there's 9 seats there, or 8 seats, not 9.
Right.
And so with the 9th, they didn't have an extra chair or couldn't find it on that day. So they had to bring in one of those Eames chairs. Was it Eames chair? That went with the table in the kitchen.
It's an interesting line because she is a part of the family, and I loved having her there. But it looked out of character for me. Or like if she was going to have dinner, then she should have gotten dressed in civvies instead of wearing a
Yeah, she wasn't cooking dinner, right? She could have been. Well, she was helping in the kitchen.
Yeah,
And have you ever? It's rare, and I'm noticing this more and more. One or the other of Carol or Alice to be in the kitchen alone.
Right.
They're almost like Spock and Kirk,
Captain Kirk,
on the bridge
That's
at
true.
that corner of the kitchen aisle, like
That's
at
true.
their station,
That's true.
cooking together.
Right.
Anyway, so the moral of our story is a why? Keep trying, try again. I guess is what
cut yourself some
right up
slack.
front.
Don't be so hard on yourself, but also get real. You can't just pick up any of these sports that people invest their entire lives. It's like guitar playing. Musicians will tell you 10,000 hours. Then you're beginning to get a handle on what's going on. You're going to be comfortable. 10,000 hours. Well, if you break that down into how many days and how many years, I mean, that's a substantial part of your life. It's a big part of your life. Hours and hours.
But there's a good point there because, and we didn't talk about this about how much you love something, but it's the passion of something gets you through those hours.
True. That's
like it's not time spent in prison. So without the passion, you probably are going to give up before you become proficient. There has to be.
But that doesn't make you not untalented. It doesn't make you a horrible person or a loser or.
No, but you have to have a real reason
where your natural
to be
aptitude
connected.
is. Yeah. I listened to a concert pianist and she was being interviewed. And the interviewer was saying how talented she was, and she's been recognized for her playing. She goes, "I'm not talented." She says, "If I was talented, I wouldn't have had to spend so many hours of my youth practicing." That's how you get there. That is how you get there.
Yeah, there's no overnight success.
Hey, this was an interesting romp through an episode. I'd love to get Eve's take on it. I'd like to ask her the question about the art, and if this episode inspired herself to go ahead and continue to explore it.
Why don't we try to get her on, if that's all right with you?
I'd love it. I'd love it. I loved having Susan on, and we're looking forward to having Michael and Eve both. Until then, we're going to come back. We're going to do this all over again next week. We're going to pick another episode, probably from an earlier season, and 5, which is where we were, and go through it all again. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for our Real Brady Bros podcast. This is a lot of fun for us, and we hope you're enjoying it too. And so tune in again, and we'll have a new one up for you next week. Until then, I'm Barry Williams.
And I'm Christopher Knight.
And we are
the Real
Brady Bros. Have a sunshine day, everybody.
Goodbye now.
Are you ready? Amazon Warehouse Hiring Day is coming on October 26th. Amazon will host live hiring events in your city to showcase all the reasons why this Amazon warehouse is the place to work. Things like competitive pay, great benefits, and so much more. Drop in for some swag, bring a friend, and you could even walk away with a job. To find an Amazon Warehouse Hiring Day event close to you, visit amazon.com/hiring day. That's amazon.com/hiring day. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Tired of long waits and rushed care at the ER and urgent care clinic? Next time, stay home and let Dispatch Health bring the power of the hospital to you.
I call Dispatch Health. A care team of medical professionals actually come to your house.
They're the same caliber of people that you would see if you were at a hospital or an urgent care.
Dispatch Health can treat most non-life-threatening emergencies.
They can do the x-rays, they can do stitches.
Urinary tract infections, blood test, urinalysis, ultrasound.
It's almost everything that they can do at the ER.
You never feel rushed. They're there for you and only you.
I felt like their only patient.
And it costs no more than a trip to urgent care because Dispatch Health is covered by most insurance, including Medicare. See if we serve your home at dispatchhealth.com.
Dispatch Health really went above and beyond.
It's wonderful to have care come to your home.
House calls are back, and they're better than ever. Learn more at dispatchhealth.com.